The studio was still wrapped in morning haze when Rhea arrived, her steps sharp against the concrete floor. The lighting crew was just finishing setup, their movements quiet, deliberate. A soft hum of routine filled the air, but beneath it lay a brittle silence, one that clung to the air like static. She spotted Jade immediately. The actress stood across the set, shoulders stiff as she flipped through her marked-up script. Her eyes, rimmed in red, darted nervously across the pages. Rhea frowned, a flicker of concern tightening her chest, but she said nothing. Just watched. From a distance. Jade hadn't slept. Rhea could tell. The shadows under her eyes were darker than makeup could cover, and her usual lightness, the subtle grace that made her stand out even when she stood still, was gone. Replaced by something rigid and wary. They hadn't spoken since the rooftop, since Jade's voice cracked under the weight of a confession Rhea had no answer for. "You're the only one who sees me," Jade had said. And Rhea had walked away. Now, they moved like ghosts around each other, carefully avoiding direct lines of sight. The set was a maze of emotional landmines. One glance too long, one word too soft, and everything would crumble again. "Scene 12, take 1, the assistant director called out. Jade stepped into place beside her male co-star, a new recruit, named Simon. He was charming, competent, but forgettable. They began the scene, trading lines, but Jade stumbled halfway through. "Wait. Sorry," she said, waving her hand. "Can we cut?" Simon looked to Rhea, uncertain. Rhea walked forward, heels tapping like punctuation. She didn't look at Jade directly. "Line delivery was flat," she said, her tone clipped. "You're supposed to be torn, not tired." Jade flinched. I know," she said quietly. "I'll do better." A pause. Rhea turned away. Again, from the top. They tried again. And again. Jade's timing improved, but her eyes never lit up. The chemistry wasn't there. Rhea knew it. Everyone knew it. Still, no one spoke. The crew moved around them like dancers in a silent waltz, pretending not to notice the tension that buzzed between director and actress, like a power line ready to snap. But it was there. Palpable Jade kept stealing glances at Rhea between takes, her lips pressed tight as if holding back words she didn't dare say. And Rhea, who prided herself on reading emotions with surgical precision, couldn't meet her gaze. The rooftop played on loop in her mind. Jade's voice, trembling. "You tell me to be raw on camera, but you can't handle it when it's real." The way she reached out, then drew back when Rhea froze. The way Rhea had let her walk away. Now, here they were, pretending to be fine. Pretending the confessions never happened. Pretending the world hadn't cracked just a little around them. As the crew wrapped the scene, Rhea retreated to the monitors. Jade remained in place for a moment, her eyes cast downward. She didn't look up again, not at Rhea, not at anyone, and Rhea didn't call after her. But she watched. And she ached. In the quiet lull between takes, Rhea whispered to herself, just barely audible over the hum of lights overhead. "She's breaking, and it's because I won't let her in." She clenched her fist, her professional mask cracking at the edges. But still, she said nothing. Not yet. The prop room was quiet, cooler than the studio, dim with forgotten set pieces and hanging fabric clouds from a long-wrapped fantasy film. It was the only place in the building that didn't hum with voices or footsteps. Jade stood by the doorway for a moment, watching Rhea rifling through production notes under the soft flicker of an old wall lamp. It was lunch break. Everyone else was out or eating. Jade chose now for a reason. She closed the door behind her. Soft click. Rhea didn't look up. If you're looking for Mira, I think she went to grab... I'm looking for you. Jade cut in. Rhea stilled. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to meet Jade's. There was no warmth, just that carefully controlled, neutral expression she wore like armor. What is it? Rhea asked, her voice low but guarded. Jade stepped forward, her hands shaking just slightly. Why do you keep pulling away from me? Rhea sighed and turned back to her clipboard. This isn't the time. There never is, Jade snapped, sharper than she meant to. She inhaled to steady herself. You act like nothing happened. Like I didn't say what I said on that rooftop. Like we didn't almost what? Rhea's tone was suddenly clipped. Dangerous. Feel something, Jade whispered. Be something. Rhea looked away. Jade took another step, her voice softening. You told me to be vulnerable on screen. You pushed me to dig deep, to bring everything I've buried out into the open. And I did. For the camera. For you. Silence. Jade's throat tightened. But you won't even look at me when I'm standing right in front of you. Rhea finally set the clipboard down. She didn't speak right away. Her fingers trembled against the edge of the table, subtle but visible. I'm your director, she said at last, as if clinging to a single truth in a storm of emotion. This, whatever you think is happening, it's unprofessional. Jade's jaw clenched. Don't do that. Don't hide behind your job. This isn't just about professionalism and you know it. It is, Rhea insisted, though the crack in her voice betrayed her. It has to be. No. You're scared. The words hung in the air, still and electric. Rhea blinked. Excuse me? You're scared of what this could be. Of what you feel. Jade's voice was softer now, not accusing, just raw. Because if you weren't, you'd at least be honest with me. You'd admit that I'm not the only one affected. I never asked you to feel anything for me, Rhea said. Jade flinched like she'd been slapped. But Rhea looked haunted the moment the words left her mouth. I'm sorry, she whispered. Jade turned away, blinking hard, arms wrapped tight around herself. You don't have to ask. Some things just happen. Silence wrapped around them again. Thick. Cold. After a long moment, Rhea stepped closer, her voice quieter than Jade had ever heard it. When I get close to someone, I lose myself, she murmured. And the last time I did that, I was left in pieces. Someone took what I gave and used it until there was nothing left. And I swore I'd never let that happen again. Jade looked up, pain flooding her expression. I'm not her. I know, Rhea whispered, but that doesn't make it easier. Jade took a shaky breath. I'm not asking you to fall. Just stop pretending you haven't already. That broke something. Ria's breath hitched, but instead of closing the space between them, she stepped back. "I can't do this," she said. "Not now." Jade nodded slowly. A bitter smile tugged at her lips. "I figured." She turned and walked toward the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. "I meant everything I said," Jade murmured, without turning around. "But I won't keep chasing someone who keeps running." And then she left. Ria stood alone in the prop room, back against the table, eyes glossy with unshed tears, her fists clenched tightly at her sides, nails biting into her palm. Behind her mask of composure, her heart thundered with something she wasn't ready to name 2 years ago. A warm evening in Cannes. The festival lights gleamed like tiny stars, reflected in champagne flutes, and everyone sparkled, draped in silk, secrets, and self-importance. Ria had just screened her second indie film to a room full of critics and producers who clapped just a beat too long. She smiled, accepted their praise. But her heart raced for a different reason. Celeste. She remembered the way Celeste stood near the balcony, bathed in moonlight and applause, laughing like she had nothing to prove. She was stunning. Charisma poured out of her like perfume, and everyone drank it in. Celeste had been a supporting actress in Ria's film. Talented, sharp, disarming. They'd spent long nights reviewing scenes, lingering over post-shoot drinks, sharing fragments of their pass between edits and coffee breaks. It started innocently, talking too late into the night, knees touching under a shared blanket on a hotel couch. But it turned fast, passionate, addictive. For Ria, it felt real. Celeste kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. She whispered things that made Ria's chest tighten. How she'd never felt this seen. How Ria made her brave. And Ria, always so careful, let herself believe it. They kept it quiet, hidden beneath red carpets and press junkets. But in the quiet hours, when the cameras stopped rolling, it was just them. Skin, breath, laughter muffled by hotel pillows. Hope blooming in places Ria had long buried, until the premiere night. That was the last time she saw Celeste. The very next morning, Celeste was gone. No goodbye, no explanation. Ria called, texted, waited. Nothing. A week later, industry news exploded. Celeste had landed a major lead role in a blockbuster drama, and rumors swirled about her networking charm, her ability to get close to people who mattered. Ria was never mentioned by name, but the implications were loud enough. She had been a rung on a ladder, a stepping stone Celeste kissed and left behind. Ria never confronted her. What was the point? Instead, she made a decision. No more mixing emotion with direction. No more blurring lines. No more mistaking vulnerability for connection. She rebuilt, her walls, brick by brick, reinforced with professionalism and distance. It was safer that way. Easier. Until Jade. Until those dark, expressive eyes started watching her between takes. Not with ambition, but something softer. Truer. Until Jade let herself be broken on camera, then walked off set, still trembling, trusting. Ria to hold her. And Ria had felt it again. That terrifying rush. That warmth that demanded she break her own rules. She couldn't. Wouldn't. Because falling once had cost her more than just pride. It had stolen the part of herself that believed. Love? The afternoon heat had settled into the studio lights, thick and oppressive. Scene 23 was a soft, romantic moment. Jade's character was meant to fall into the arms of her on-screen lover after weeks of emotional tension. Simple, on paper. Difficult in reality. "Take 5, Rhea called, her voice already tight with frustration. Jade stepped back from her co-star Simon, cheeks flushed, not with passion but exhaustion. She rubbed her hands together, pacing. Simon looked apologetic. "I'm trying, but I don't know what I'm missing." "It's not you," Rhea said too quickly. Her gaze locked on Jade. "Jade, what's going on?" That last take was completely disconnected. Jade glanced away. "I'm trying to feel it, but it's empty. The lines are fine. The blocking is right." Rhea crossed her arms. "So what's missing?" Jade didn't answer. Her shoulders sank, her eyes on the floor. Rhea sighed. Then something shifted. She handed her headset to the assistant and stepped onto the set. "I'll walk it through with her," she said. "Simon, take a break." Simon blinked, surprised, but nodded and stepped aside. Rhea approached Jade with a calm, quiet intensity. "Let's reset. You start with your back turned. I'll come in on the last line." Jade nodded, uncertain. Her pulse thundered. This wasn't in the plan. Rhea never stood in. "Rolling," the cameraman called hesitantly. Jade turned her back, hands trembling. She took a breath and began. "I waited for you. I thought I mattered." Rhea's voice came from behind her, low and steady. "You do. You always did." Jade turned and found Rhea inches from her. They weren't acting, or maybe they were. But it was different. The air between them pulsed. Rhea reached out and gently touched Jade's jaw, her hand surprisingly warm. The line came again. "You always did." The words landed like thunder. Jade's breath caught. Her reply was nearly a whisper. "Then why did you leave?" Rhea didn't blink. "Because you made me feel something I wasn't ready to feel." Their eyes locked, longer than the script called for, longer than necessary. The silence thickened. No one on the crew spoke. The boom mic dipped slightly as even the operator leaned in. Jade tilted her head, her lips parting slightly. Rhea leaned closer, just enough for their foreheads to almost brush. And then, "Cut," Rhea said abruptly. She stepped back as if the ground had burned her. Her hands dropped to her sides, her face stone. "That's enough. Let's take a proper break," she said, already walking off set. The crew glanced between each other, speechless. Jade stood in place, dazed. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, like she'd just run a mile. She could still feel the imprint of Rhea's touch on her skin. It hadn't been a demonstration. Not really. It had been something else. Something raw. Something real. And Rhea had fled from it. Jade wrapped her arms around herself, her body still humming with unsaid words and lingering heat. She looked toward where Rhea had disappeared behind the curtain, her heart pounding. Was it acting? Or was it the moment Rhea finally slipped? She didn't know, and that scared her more than anything. The cafe was quiet, nestled on a corner just outside the studio district. String lights blinked lazily above the patio, and the low hum of jazz played from a dusty speaker near the counter. Jade sat at a small outdoor table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug she hadn't sipped from in minutes. Across from her, Mira watched with concern etched gently between her brows. She stirred her chai with a wooden stick, letting the silence stretch until Jade finally broke it. "I don't know what's happening anymore," Jade murmured, her gaze fixed on the steam curling from her coffee. Mira tilted her head. "This about Rhea?" Jade let out a breath that was part laugh, part sigh. "What gave it away?" "You've been staring at your coffee like it's going to write you back." Mira leaned in, her voice softer. "Talk to me." Jade hesitated. Then it came tumbling out. The rooftop. That moment we had. I thought it meant something. And then today, during the scene. God, Mira, it felt real. Too real. She looked at me like she didn't know where the character ended, and I began. Mira listened without interrupting, only nodding as Jade's words spilled faster, more fragile, and then she cut the scene and walked away. Again, like it didn't happen, like I'm just imagining it all. "You're not," Mira said simply. Jade blinked. "How do you know?" Mira smiled, patient and knowing. "Because I've seen you act, and I've seen you fall. You're not just acting anymore, are you?" Jade's throat tightened. She looked away, her eyes catching on the distant glow of a streetlight flickering above a quiet road. "I think I'm in love with her," she whispered. The words sat between them, warm and terrifying. Mira reached across the table and covered Jade's hand with her own. "I was wondering how long it'd take for you to say it out loud." Jade's lips twitched in the ghost of a smile. Mira squeezed her hand. "Just don't stay silent. I know she's guarded, but sometimes the bravest thing you can do is wait. And sometimes," she added gently, "the braver thing is to speak first." Jade nodded, the fear still present, but steadied now, shaped into something clearer. She had a name for what she felt. And that changed everything. It started with a knock on Jade's trailer door. Polite, clipped, and life-altering. "Jade? They want to see you in the executive office. Now." Inside, the head of casting and a visiting producer from Silvergate Studios, a prestigious international company, handed her a packet of documents with her name on the front. Jade's fingers trembled before she even flipped through the first page. A lead role in a high-profile film, filming in Rome, 6 months abroad, a character written with her in mind. It was the kind of offer actresses dreamed of, the kind agents fought for. This could launch her career beyond what she imagined, but the timeline conflicted with the remainder of Rhea's production. To accept the role meant walking away from the final weeks of filming. "This is a rare window," the Silvergate rep said, smiling. "We'd need your commitment by Friday." Jade nodded, dazed. She didn't smile. Not yet. Rhea heard about the offer before Jade could say a word. A quiet aside in a production meeting. A producer's offhand comment. "If she takes it, we'll need to rewrite the ending." No big deal. Just a little detour in logistics. Rhea kept her face neutral. She nodded, added a few suggestions. But inside, something cold bloomed behind her ribs. Not jealousy, Not even resentment, just an ache, sharp and immediate. Back in her office, she pulled open her drawer and retrieved the production detachment form, something she never liked to use. It was a procedural thing, used when a director needed to step back from scenes involving actors with conflicting schedules or exits. Her hand hovered over the line where she had to sign. You knew she wouldn't stay forever. She signed. The pen left a small smudge. Her hands were shaking. The door creaked open behind her. Jade stood in the doorway, the script binder pressed to her chest. Her eyes fell immediately to the form Rhea had just signed. "What is that?" she asked, voice low. Rhea didn't answer at first. She flipped the paper over and set it aside. "Just paperwork." "You're detaching from my scenes?" Jade's voice cracked slightly. "You might be leaving the production," Rhea replied, still not meeting her eyes. "It's just protocol." Jade stepped forward. "You weren't going to talk to me about it?" Rhea finally looked at her, and her face was unreadable. "It's your choice, your career. You don't owe anyone an explanation." "But I wanted to tell you. That doesn't change what's happening." Silence. Jade's throat tightened. "Does it really not matter to you at all?" Rhea flinched. Barely, but Jade saw it. "It matters," Rhea said, barely a whisper. "Of course it matters." Jade crossed the room, her eyes searching Rhea's face. "Then say it." "I can't," Rhea said, her voice brittle. "Because if I say it, if I say I don't want you to go, it stops being about directing and starts being about us." "And what's wrong with that?" Rhea shook her head, her voice fraying. "Everything. Everything I've built, every line I've kept. If I cross it now, I lose control." "You already lost it," Jade said, stepping closer, her voice breaking. "That day on set, the rooftop. You already crossed it." They stood inches apart. But Rhea didn't reach for her. She stepped back. "I hope you take the role," she said finally. "You deserve it." Jade nodded, swallowing hard. "Then, I hope I find a reason to stay." She turned and walked out, the air behind her heavy with words unspoken. And Rhea sat back in her chair, unable to breathe through the ache blooming in her chest. The set was quieter than usual on the final day of filming. A hush had settled over the crew, as though everyone knew they were preparing not just to wrap a scene, but to witness something more. Jade stood in position under the lights, the familiar weight of her costume draped around her like second skin. Her breath was shallow, her fingers clenching and unclenching at her sides. The script pages had long since been memorized. Every word in the final monologue was written by Rhea herself, a rare occurrence. Rhea, who usually trusted the writing team, had chosen to script this one alone. "And action," the assistant director called softly. The camera rolled. Jade's character looked into the void of the set, her fictional world's final moment of reckoning, and began. "I've spent my whole life performing," she said, voice steady, low, hiding behind gestures, behind carefully rehearsed lines, behind someone else's story. Her voice trembled just enough to feel real. But when the lights go off and the cameras stop, I still want something real. Something that doesn't disappear with applause. Rhea sat behind the monitor, her eyes fixed on the screen, her hands locked in a white-knuckled grip around her headset. She knew the words, had written them with Jade in mind, not realizing how much they would come to resemble her own feelings. Jade paused. Tears filled her eyes, and the silence became thick. Then, she looked straight into the camera and said something, not in the script. And what if the person I need is standing behind the camera? Gasps, nearly inaudible, rippled across the crew. The boom mic dipped slightly. The cinematographer's hands paused. The clapperboard, held at the ready for a reshoot, hung frozen. Ria's breath caught. Jade's voice cracked with raw honesty. What if I'm done pretending? What if the most honest thing I've ever said was never meant to be part of the script? Silence. No one called cut. No one moved. Ria stood slowly, eyes never leaving the monitor, lips parted in disbelief. Her headset slid off her shoulders and hit the table with a soft clatter. She turned and walked out. Just like that. Not a word. Not a look. The scene was still rolling when the door closed behind her. Jade's lips trembled as she saw the movement from the corner of her eye. She stood there, eyes full of tears, heart pounding in a hollow chest, unsure whether she'd just ended her career or cracked something wide open. And... cut, the assistant director said hesitantly. The crew didn't speak. They just watched her. Everyone knew something had happened. Something true. Jade stepped off the set slowly, eyes fixed on the doorway Ria had disappeared through. Her confession hung in the air like stage dust. Real, irreversible, and heard by everyone, but the one who mattered most. The house was still. Ria sat curled on her living room couch, the only light coming from the soft glow of her laptop. The footage window was open, paused mid-frame on Jade's tear-streaked face. Ria pressed play again. And what if the person I need is standing behind the camera? Her voice was raw, bare, meant for no one else but her. Ria swallowed hard, blinking back the tears already forming. She paused, rewound, watched it again. There it was, truth layered in fiction, vulnerability stripped of pretense. And it wasn't acting. She let the video roll in silence. Jade's final unscripted words echoed through the room again, soft and devastating. What if the most honest thing I've ever said was never meant to be part of the script? Ria closed the laptop slowly. She didn't reach for wine, or turn on music, or call anyone. She opened her email instead. Blank message. Cursor blinking. Subject line, untitled draft in the body. She typed, "Come back, or let me come with you. I don't know how to do this, but I want to try. Please." Her fingers hovered over the send button. She could hear her heartbeat like it had crept up into her ears. A part of her screamed, "It's too soon. Too risky. Too late." Another voice, quieter, said, "Maybe it's exactly on time." She didn't press send, but she didn't delete it either. She hit save as draft, closed the lid of her laptop, and exhaled a shaky breath. Then she looked over at the door, half shut, but not locked, like something inside her had finally shifted. Not enough to leap, but enough to lean forward. A door left slightly open. A message nearly sent. A heart almost spoken. The silence in her home wasn't cold anymore. Just waiting.